Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that's been a real roller coaster for thousands of civil service aspirants in Telangana. We're talking about a court ruling that first put their careers on hold and then, just as suddenly, put them right back on track. Okay, so let's get right into it. Why is this new court order such a big deal? Well, to really get why it's bringing so much relief, you first have to understand the massive anxiety that came before it. This whole thing has been a high-stakes legal battle, with thousands of people's futures just hanging in the balance. And that anxiety, where did it all come from? Well, it all kicked off with an earlier court decision that basically threw the entire Group 1 recruitment process into, absolute chaos. I mean, just try to put yourself in their shoes for a second. You spend years studying, you finally get your rank, and then, boom, a court order comes down and says it might all be for nothing. That was the sudden, incredibly stressful reality for thousands and thousands of these candidates. And just look at the scope of this order. This wasn't some minor correction the judge was asking for. No, this was a total reset. The directive was to either reevaluate every single paper or just conduct the entire exam all over again. And they had to do it in 8 months. This put both the rankers and the Public Service Commission in a completely impossible spot. So, as you can probably guess, the Telangana Public Service Commission, or the TGPSC, wasn't just going to take this lying down. They decided to fight back. They immediately challenged that ruling, taking their case up to a higher division bench of the court. And a really key part of their argument came down to this one number, 14. The TGPSC's lawyers made a huge point of this. They stressed that it had been 14 long years since these high-level recruitments were held in such a transparent way. So the stakes here weren't just about this one exam you see. It was about the stability of the entire public administration. Now, this is where it gets a little technical, but it's super important. The whole legal argument really hinged on this very specific distinction. See, the TGPSC's rules, they allow for recounting. That's pretty simple. It's just adding up the marks again to make sure the math is right. But what they explicitly do not allow is reevaluation, which is where a totally new examiner comes in and regrades the answers from scratch. And this right here, this was the absolute heart of their legal challenge. The Advocate General basically argued that ordering a reevaluation went directly against the established rules of the exam. So they weren't just arguing about the specific complaints in this case, they were arguing about the fundamental rules of the game, the letter of the law. All right, so with the TGPSC laying out this really powerful legal argument, the whole story takes a huge turn. And this is where that relief we talked about finally starts to come into view. So after hearing what the TGPSC had to say, the division bench, well, they agreed. They issued what's called a stay order, and that effectively just hit the pause button on the single bench's entire ruling. Just like that, ranks were no longer canceled, the recruitment could get going again, and that reevaluation order was put on hold. And this was the news. My goodness, this was the news that thousands of candidates were desperately waiting for. The immediate threat was gone. Their ranks were back, and the TGPSC got the green light to move forward. It finally put an end to that period of just intense uncertainty. Okay, so the process is back on track, which is obviously a huge step forward. But, and this is a really big but, it all comes with a very, very important condition. So this is basically the path forward, at least for now. Hiring can start up again, and people can actually be appointed to their new jobs. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Every single one of those appointments is conditional. They're all hanging on what the court's final verdict is. And the next big date to circle on your calendar is October 16th, because that's when the case will be heard again. And that's where we have to leave it for now. While this stay order is a huge relief, the final verdict is going to set a major precedent. I mean, this whole case really shines a spotlight on that delicate balance between a single person's grievance and the rigid rules of a massive public institution. And it leaves us with a really critical question about the future of public service recruitment in the entire state.